Good Tuesday morning, Patriots, and welcome back to O'Connor's Right Stand. I'm your host, John O'Connor, software programmer by day, conservative truth seeker by night. Last Friday, a 22-year-old woman named Fox Varian walked out of a Westchester County courtroom with a $2 million verdict against the doctors who destroyed her body when she was 16 years old. This wasn't a settlement behind closed doors. This was a jury. 12 people in one of the bluest counties in America who listened to 3 weeks of testimony and called it what it is: medical malpractice. Not affirming care, not life-saving treatment, malpractice. The jury awarded her $1.6 million for pain and suffering, $400,000 for medical expenses she will face for the rest of her life. And Patriots, this is just the beginning. There are 28 more lawsuits like this working through the courts right now. Today, we are breaking down who Fox Varian is and what happened to her, what the jury found, why this verdict just destroyed the gender industry's business model, and what it means for parents trying to protect their kids from this madness. Because make no mistake, now there's a price tag. Now there are consequences. And now doctors who rush kids into irreversible surgeries are going to think twice before they pick up the scalpel. The Right Stand starts now. Fox Varian is 22 years old now. She works as an actress, and she lives every single day with the permanent consequences of decisions that adults made for her when she was just 16. Her childhood was rough, Patriots. Parents divorced when she was 7, 3-year custody battle, estranged from her father. And like a lot of kids dealing with trauma, she struggled body dysmorphia, anorexia, depression, and according to trial testimony, she's autistic. Now, here's the question. When a 16-year-old girl dealing with divorce trauma, eating disorders, depression, and autism tells you she thinks she's a boy, what should a responsible doctor do? Should they explore those issues first? Provide therapy to help her work through trauma? Consider whether the eating disorder and body dysmorphia might be connected to gender confusion? Wonder if autism, which we now know affects how people process identity, might play a role? Or should they say, sure, let's cut off your breasts? Guess which one happened. In 2019, Fox was referred to psychologist Kenneth Einhorn in Westchester, New York. And according to her lawyers, Kenneth drove the train. He was putting the idea in Fox's head that she needed to address her gender dysphoria with surgery. Not therapy, not exploration of her other mental health issues, not a waiting period, surgery. Irreversible permanent surgery on a child. Kenneth wrote a referral letter to plastic surgeon Simon Chin. But that letter, the one supposed to give Chin a complete psychological picture, contained omissions and inaccuracies. The jury heard that Kenneth never contacted Albany Pride Center where Fox had been getting services. You know what she told staff there? She felt pressure to decide on a gender identity by family, friends, and culture. Does that sound like certainty? Or does that sound like a confused teenager being pushed into a choice she's not ready to make? And Fox's mother, Claire Deacon, she testified she was adamantly opposed to the surgery. She didn't want her 16-year-old daughter's breasts cut off. But you know what Kenneth told her? He told her Fox would commit suicide without the surgery. I was scared out of my wits, Deacon testified. She said she would never have approved it without Dr. Kenneth, repeatedly, emphatically, consistently pushing me. That's emotional blackmail, Patriots. Let us mutilate your daughter or she'll kill herself. What kind of doctor does that? So Fox goes for the surgery. A double mastectomy at 16. Perfect healthy breasts, gone forever. And by 2023, just 4 years later, Fox realized the truth. She wasn't transgender. She never was. She was a traumatized, confused teenager who needed therapy and time. Instead, she got a scalpel. Fox testified about what it's like to live with this every day. Shame. I felt shame, she said. It's hard to face that you are disfigured for life. That's the reality, Patriots. That's what these kids live with. And the doctors who did this, they move on to the next patient, the next surgery, the next paycheck. The jury wasn't asked whether gender-affirming surgery for minors is appropriate in general. The question was specific. Did psychologist Kenneth Einhorn and surgeon Simon Chin follow proper standards of care for this patient? And the jury's answer was clear. No, they did not. The jury found that Einhorn and Chin skipped important steps when evaluating whether Fox should go forward with the surgery. They found the doctors had not adequately communicated with each other. Think about that. The psychologist who's supposed to evaluate whether this kid is ready for life-altering surgery didn't properly communicate with the surgeon about to perform it. That's basic stuff. Medical Care 101, and they didn't do it. Einhorn didn't obtain a complete medical history. He never contacted Albany Pride Center, where she told people she felt pressured about her identity. That information would have been crucial. Chin didn't have a clear psychological picture because of omissions in Einhorn's referral letter. And here's the amazing part. Both doctors testified that they wouldn't have done it if they'd known the full story. Einhorn said he might not have written the letter if he'd known Fox was unsure about her identity. Chin testified he wouldn't have performed the surgery if he'd known she was unsure. So let me get this straight. Both doctors are now saying, well, if we'd known the truth, we wouldn't have done it. But whose job was it to know the truth, Patriots? Whose responsibility was it to get the complete picture before permanently mutilating a 16-year-old girl's body? Theirs. That was their job, and they didn't do it. The defense tried to argue Fox pushed for everything. The pronouns, the haircut, the name changes, and maybe she did. But here's the question. Should a 16-year-old's wishes, a kid dealing with autism, body dysmorphia, anorexia, depression, and trauma, be taken as gospel without any deeper evaluation? We don't let 16-year-olds drive 100 miles per hour just because they want to. Why? Because they don't have fully developed brains yet. They are vulnerable. They need protection from making decisions they will regret. And that's why we have standards of care. And the jury said these doctors failed. $2 million. And here's what should terrify every gender doctor in America. Fox's lawyers asked for $8 million. The jury gave her $2 million. That's a compromise verdict. A jury being somewhat reasonable while still sending a message. This was malpractice. Wait until the next case. Wait until juries see this as a pattern. Those numbers are going up, not down. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. Because what happened to Fox Varian isn't unique. It's typical. This is happening to thousands of kids across this country right now. And it's not an accident. It's a system. It's a business model. Here's how it works. Social contagion. Kids, especially teenage girls, discover transgender identity online. They join communities where everyone's trans. They learn vocabulary that makes them feel special. Suddenly, all their problems have one explanation. They are trans. Not depressed, trans. Not traumatized, trans. Not autistic, trans. Then comes the affirmative care model. When kids tell adults they are trans, the approved approach, pushed by groups like WPATH, is to affirm it. Don't question, don't explore other causes, just believe the kid and start them toward medical transition. This is what Einhorn's attorney actually argued, that he had an attitude of whatever the kid wants, the kid gets. And the jury said that's not good enough. That fails the standard of care. When parents hesitate, doctors bring out emotional blackmail. Would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? They cite suicide statistics. They terrify parents into consenting. Then they fast track to medical intervention. Get them on puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, surgery, fast, before anyone has time to question. Why? Because every intervention is money, patriots. A top surgery, double mastectomy like Fox got, costs $7,000 to $10,000. Bottom surgery costs $20,000 to $100,000 or more. Hormone treatments are a lifetime subscription. Kids starting at 14 will pay for those hormones every month for 60 years. This isn't healthcare. This is a cash cow. But the business model relies on kids not regretting it. It relies on parents not suing. It relies on no accountability. And Fox Varian just blew that up. Because now there's a verdict. Now there's precedent. Now every gender doctor has to ask, if I rush this kid into surgery without proper evaluation, if I skip steps, if I use suicide threats to pressure parents, and this kid regrets it in 5 years, am I going to be defending a malpractice lawsuit? The answer is yes. Insurance companies are now freaking out. Malpractice insurance is based on risk, and the risk just went through the roof. Premiums for doctors performing these surgeries are about to skyrocket. When that happens, a lot of these doctors are going to think twice before cutting off a 16-year-old's breasts. Fox Varian isn't alone. She's just the first to win in court. There are currently 28 more lawsuits filed by detransitioners across the country. 28 more young people who had their bodies permanently altered and are now suing the doctors who failed them. Let me tell you about a few because these stories need to be heard. Prisha Moseley started Depo-Provera at 16 to stop her periods. Testosterone at 17. Double mastectomy at 18. She was told this would drastically improve her life. It was a lie and a scam, and she's now suing. Chloe Cole spent her 19th birthday testifying before Congress. She told lawmakers how her parents were manipulated by gender specialists into having her mutilated. She pleaded with them to end child sex changes. Luca Hine, lawsuit against University of Nebraska Medical Center. Christina Heinemann, lawsuit pending in New York. More in California. More everywhere. You know what all these stories have in common? The pattern? Teenage girl with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, trauma, autism, eating disorders, discovers transgender identity online, gets referred to gender clinic. Doctors affirm without proper evaluation, fast track to hormones and surgery. Years later, realizes it was a mistake and tries to get help. She gets ghosted because the gender industry doesn't want to acknowledge detransitioners. These are failed products, customers who broke the model by regretting it. So these kids are left to deal with the consequences alone. Same doctors who rush them into surgery won't help them reverse it. Insurance won't cover a reversal. They are living with permanently altered bodies, sterilized, disfigured, dealing with complications forever. But not anymore. Because Fox and other detransitioners are saying, no, you don't get to destroy our lives and walk away. There are consequences now. And that $2 million verdict is just the beginning. So where do we go from here? First, the legal floodgates are opening. Fox's victory will embolden more lawsuits. Law firms are recruiting detransitioners. Class actions are being prepared. And juries will be sympathetic. This wasn't some conservative jury in rural Texas. This was Westchester County, New York. Blue as they come. And even they called it malpractice. If you can get that verdict in Westchester, you can get it anywhere. Second, policy implications. Red states that ban child transitions will point to this verdict. See, we were right. Juries agree. Blue states will face pressure to regulate better, add safeguards, slow the process down. Third, the cultural shift. Parents now have ammunition to say no. If a doctor says, your kid needs surgery or they will kill themselves, parents can say, really? Because a jury just awarded $2 million to a kid whose doctor said the same thing. Schools pushing gender ideology? Parents can fight back using this verdict. The pendulum is swinging back, Patriots. Fourth, other countries are watching. UK banned puberty blockers. Sweden, Finland, Norway reversed course. Now America has a jury verdict calling this malpractice. That's going to reverberate worldwide. And finally, the Trump connection. President Trump already banned taxpayer funding for child transitions. This verdict vindicates that policy. Expect more federal action from HHS to protect kids. Now let me speak directly to parents listening. If you've got a kid struggling with identity, if a teenager told you they're transgender, if a doctor is pressuring you to consent to hormones or surgery, hear this. You have the right to say no. You have the right to take time, get multiple opinions, explore other explanations for your child's distress. Insist on therapy before medical intervention. Ask questions. Demand complete evaluations. And if a doctor tells you your child will commit suicide if you don't immediately agree to transition treatment, that's emotional blackmail. That's manipulation. And based on Fox Varian's case, it might be malpractice. Your child's confusion is normal. Teenage identity crisis isn't a medical emergency. Most kids who experience gender dysphoria grow out of it if you give them time and support. The research shows this. But rushing them into irreversible interventions they will regret, that doesn't help. Fox Varian can't get her breasts back. Prisha Moseley can't undo her sterilization. $2 million can't fix what was broken. But your child still has time. Your child's body is still intact. And you have the power to protect them. So use it. Stand up to doctors pushing you. Stand up to the schools hiding information. Stand up to the culture telling your child they need to transition to be happy. Because your child needs love, support, therapy, time to figure out who they are. What they don't need is a scalpel. Okay, Patriots, it is time for me to bring this home. On Friday, a jury in Westchester County looked at what psychologist Kenneth Einhorn and surgeon Simon Chin did to Fox Varian when she was 16, and they called it malpractice. $2 million. They found these doctors skipped steps, failed to communicate, didn't get complete history, and pressured a vulnerable child using suicide threats. This is the first detransitioner lawsuit to go to trial and win. It won't be the last. 28 more cases are coming. There will be hundreds more. The kids who were told transition would save their lives are realizing it ruined their lives, and they are holding doctors accountable. The gender industry has operated in the shadows for way too long, making billions experimenting on children, destroying bodies, abandoning them when things go wrong. But Fox Varian's courage, standing in a courtroom, telling her story, facing down the doctors who mutilated her, that courage is going to save other kids. Because now there are consequences. Now there's a price for rushing children into life-altering interventions. The tide is turning, and Fox Varian is leading the way. So hit that subscribe, follow, and or like button wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, any of your other platforms of choice. Check out O'Connor's Quick Strike on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for rapid-fire news. And this podcast always drops on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Find me on X at O'Connor Podcasts. Share this episode. Parents need to hear this story. Have a great rest of your day, Patriots. Until Thursday, hold the line unapologetically. This is John O'Connor, signing off.